Good morning, everybody. Let's try that again. Make sure that the mic is turned on this time. Good morning, everybody. We are close to the top of the hour. If you are joining us on replay, just know that the first 12 to 18 hours, I'm not in control of where mid-break ads come in. As soon as the video is finished processing, I go back and shut them all off. So if you hit some mid-roll ads, I do apologize. There's nothing I can do about it. Also, if you scrub past this graphic, you'll get into the show where we started. Right now, I'm just waiting on the clock to finish chiming 12 noon here on the West Coast so I can reach over and hit this button and say, hey, y'all, happy Sunday to you. Hope everybody had an excellent Christmas holiday for those who celebrate Christmas. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody is healthy and, well, wealthier and wiser. Welcome to Holy Cow Live Q&A number 71. Good grief, this has become a thing. If you don't know me, what are you doing here? No, if you don't know me, my name is Mark Lindsay, and let me start this by saying I'm getting a lot of comments here lately in various places, and some of them are kind of embarrassing. I am not a CNC expert. I am not an expert with VCarve or Aspire. I'm just a guy in a shed who's trying to help folks avoid the mistakes that I have made in the past and continue to make to this day. I will definitely help you out when and where I can, but I have not done everything and I am not an expert. Just know that, okay? Also, I'm going to do a little bit of a change up here. We have, for some reason, I don't know if folks are sharing the shows out or what have you, but for some reason we have a lot more people joining us for these live Q&A sessions. And what I have been doing in the past is I've been going down the list in the chat and greeting everybody by name. And we're just getting to the point to where, like last week, that took like the first 7, almost 8 minutes of the broadcast. So I'm going to start trying to greet everybody in the chat before the show as we kick in. And next week, I think what I'm going to do, I got a little under the gun this morning. I think next week what I'll do is I'm going to kick on the graphic. I'll push the button and go live a little bit early and start greeting folks there while that graphic is up. And the reason I put that countdown graphic up to begin with is because when I click the go live button, that's when YouTube starts sending out the notifications to those of you who have clicked that little bell button and then clicked it again and set it for all notifications. Those of you who have done that, you'll get a notification on your device that I've gone live. So that's why I do that, is to give it some time, because latency being what it is and YouTube being what it is, and it has to go through so many channels to get those notifications out. I go live a little bit early to do that, to get those notifications out. So I greeted most of you this morning. I'm glad to see we've got a lot of familiar faces in here. I missed a bunch of people, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to have to stop going through and saying hello to everybody personally, because it's just taken too much time, much like this little speech here. Let's get into today's topic before I get into questions and answers, and I see there's a few out there already, and keep them coming. I had a Aspire question earlier, and this is starting to become the norm in that somebody will ask a question and then I get the same question 2 or 3 times in like an email or through the contact us page on my website, marklindsaycnc.com, and there's a link to that in the description box down below. A link to the website. Go to the website and then click the contact us link, and that'll send you to the right form. You can send me a message. I read all of them, but I'm way behind. I'm almost caught up. But I'll see one comment or I'll get one question, and then they kind of flood in. I get several more. So the question I got was about here in Aspire, the tool database. We'll go ahead and get into the tool database by coming up here to Toolpaths and get down in it. The person wanted to know how to create a new material and how to create a new group. He wanted to add metals as a material. Then he wanted to add a new category under Imperial Tools and start importing bits into that for just to kind of keep his metal end mills and tools separate from his other tools. And I don't think I ever went into this. Now, it's a fairly simple procedure, but I don't know that I ever went into this in any of the previous videos I've done on the tool database. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that now. It is, as I say, fairly simple. To add a material, and I think I have gone through this, you'll just go over here to this icon right here next to the material drop-down menu, and we'll click on this button, and then we'll come over here and click on the plus button, and that will add a material to the database. So in his case, what he wanted to do was add a new category for, let me move my microphone here, light metal. And that could be anything from aluminum to brass to whatever. And click OK on that, or excuse me, click Apply on that, and that changes the name. Then we click OK, and now we have a new material up here. So using that new material, if I click on it, go into light metal, you'll notice that all of these end mills are grayed out. What I need to now do is start adding end mills and adding tools to the list for my light metals. So for instance, I can come in here and I can add my 1/4 inch end mill just by selecting it. I'm still in the light metal category, and now I can go through here and start filling this out. The first thing I would probably do would be to make sure my tool type, the unit of measure, whether it be inches or millimeters, is selected, the diameter of the bit, the number of flutes, then come along and copy the settings for this tool from another material that I have set up that is of a similar style. Now, the criteria for carving acrylic is going to be different from hardwood, which is going to be different from MDF or softwood. I have maple in here because that's my go-to. But I'm going to try to find something fairly close. And I think softwood would probably be the closest. So what it's going to do now is it's going to copy all the settings I have for this tool from my softwood category. And I'll click copy. And that has imported the pass depth, the step over, spindle speed, feed, and speeds from the softwood category. Now, I can change all of this, and if I were actually going to create this category, I would have to. There's no way I would want to go with a 1/8 of an inch pass depth with a 1/4 inch bit machining metals, not with my CNC. And there's no way I would use these speeds and these feeds with something like aluminum on my CNC. So that is how to get in and add a material to the tool database. It's, again, simply open the material management dialog, will allow you to rename something, add a new material, or take out an old material that you no longer use. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel to get rid of all of that. Now it says here, by hitting cancel, the current tool settings have changed. Do you want to apply the changes? No, I do not. Discard, because I'm canceling that entire operation. Adding a new category of tools is very similar. Let's go ahead and open the database back up. And because I canceled that operation, I don't have light metals anymore. I'm going to go ahead and select my hardwood category, just simply because I'm more used to working with that. When it comes to adding a new tool category, let's say you want to add, let's see, what categories do I have here? I have end mills, ball nose, V-bits, form tools, engraving tools, and specialist tools, drills, tapered ball nose. Let's add a category called miscellaneous. All I'll do is I'll make sure that I have the right unit of measure up here using imperial tools if the tool is imperial, metric if the tool is metric. And I'll just select that. Then I'll come down here to the bottom and I'll add a group. So it's this second icon right here on the bottom. And it'll add a new group right here and now I can come in and I can rename it. Let's say I'm going to do miscellaneous tools. And I can put any notes in here that I want. As I add tools to this group, I can maybe list them. Like, let's see, oh my gosh, I don't know what kind of tools I would put in this category. But I might put a roundover bit here, or a beading bit, or something of that nature, which would actually go into the forming tools, but for purposes of discussion. Then I would click apply, and now I have this whole new tool category that I can go in and add tools to. And the way I would add tools to it is select the category and add a tool under that selected tool or group. And it just selected, because it selects alphabetically, it selected a ball nose. Well, if it's not a ball nose, if it's let's say it's a laser cutter, I can do that. Then it's named. You see the word kerf in here. I would have to go in and enter the kerf to change that. I would enter it in here where it says kerf. I'll cancel that. Its tool type is laser cutter. The units that I'm using, the max power of the laser, let's say I got a 4 watt, 4.0, and then I would create the settings for that laser. Then click apply, then OK, and that adds my laser cutter to that tool group. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't have a laser cutter. I'm going to click remove. This is not an undoable operation. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yes, I do. So, that's the easy way. Discard. That's the easy way to add a new material to the database. That's a new way of adding a new tool group to the database. And that's a way of canceling the addition of a new tool group or whatever to the database if you discover you have made a mistake. So let's go ahead and back out of that and let's see what you folks are saying. If you have any questions, any answers. All right, let's see. Tim Belt says, adding or using different materials. Will that change the automated feeds and speeds for the tool path? Will the program know I'm running pine or brass and set the feeds and speeds accordingly? No, it will not. What you'll have to do is, as you add a tool under, say, you create a material like brass, you will have to go in and you will have to manually put those feeds and speeds and depths of cut, past depths, in there yourself. Then save them. And once they're saved, yes, then you'll go in and you'll select when you, like if you are running a tool path, you want to create a tool path for brass. You will go into your profile tool path, for example, and when you select your bit, you select the material. Then the program knows that it's going to be brass. Now, then you calculate your tool path and away you go. If you then decide you want to cut the same project out of pine, to use your example, you'll go back into that tool path and change that bit. You click on select the bit, you'll go in and change the material. Then those feeds, speeds, and past depths will be loaded. Then you'll recalculate the tool path. I hope I didn't just confuse everybody. Did that make sense? So you have to manually make the switch and recalculate the tool path. But once you set those feeds, speeds, past depths, and all the geometry for the bit, it stays there. So long as you hit that apply button and then hit OK. So, and also you should know that the feeds and speeds that are set in Cut2D, VCarve, and Aspire from Vectric when you first download it, those are just placeholders. Those numbers are just placeholders. You need to get in, so you need to get into the manufacturer's criteria of what they recommend for a specific bit. You also need to take into consideration your machine and your material. I've stayed out of the feeds and speeds argument for years, simply because there is no cut and dried answer. Whiteside might say that for this particular bit, run it at this feed rate and at this plunge rate and at this many RPMs. But they will also say straight up that these are starting points and recommendations only. Those recommendations are based on industrial machines that can handle those feed rates, that can handle those RPMs and those plunge rates. Not all of us own a big servo-driven industrial CNC with a 10 horsepower spindle or bigger. And our machines may or may not be rigid enough to handle those kinds of speeds. I mean, I've seen some bits that they recommend running at 300 inches per minute. Your machine may or may not be capable of doing that. So that's the reason I stay out of that argument, is because there is no cut and dried answer. I start conservative, and as I see how the bit is cutting the material, I'll speed it up or slow it down as the case may be. Because even in something like maple, which is my go-to wood here lately, I'll find different densities within the same 12-inch section of board. So one feed rate will work just beautifully cutting in one direction, but as I get up and around and start cutting back the other direction, it'll start to chatter. So I'll have to kind of slow it down and get a little bit of a happy medium in there. So there is no cut and dried answer is what I'm getting at. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for the bit, but realize that those instructions are starting points. You may have to adjust up or down depending upon your situation, your material, and your machine. So, let's see. Let's go back up here. Are there any more questions on adding materials or adding tool groups to the software? And I'll cruise through looking for more questions back here because I know there were some up here close to the top. Come in and find. Let's see. Tim Belt says, I have an inlay question. Would it be best to email it or something? And I'll let him know the best way to get a hold of me is through my website. There's a link to my website in the description. Go to my website and click on that Contact Us link. And it's a form. You won't be able to attach pictures. But email your question and I will reply to you, and then you can add pictures if you need it. So, let's see. IL Peleg wants to know, do you use roundover bits? Yes. If so, would love to hear how you set tool paths to use them. I have a couple of videos coming up that will use roundover bits. In fact, that kind of dovetails into another question I saw further down. Those are all considered form bits, form tools. I've done a couple of videos. I'll put links in the description box below as soon as we're finished live here on how to enter form tools into the tool database. I'm going to be getting a lot further into form tools in 2021. And part of it's going to be adding the tool to the database, and the other part is going to be calculating for that tool. And then previewing the tool path and then going outside of the machine and actually using that tool path. So, let's see. I also warned Tim that I am way behind on emails, so it might take me a bit. And I got to say something. This is what I mean by embarrassing. I realize a knowledgeable and famous person such as yourself will be busy. I'm not an expert at anything, and I am certainly by no means famous. So please, I'm just some guy in his shed whose YouTube channel is getting away from him. So no, don't worry about that. I'm just a guy, you know. Talk to me like I'm trying to borrow money or date your daughter, you know. It's, you know, we're all good, okay? Rob Schuster says his drum build video is almost done. Lacewood with a dragon design. I eagerly look forward to this. For those of you who don't know Rob Schuster, get over and check out his YouTube channel. The dude invented a CNC drum carving machine. It was brilliant. It's absolute genius. And he is doing some killer work on that thing. I mean, geez, this thing is cool. And that's all there is to it. It's just flat out cool. So, let's see. Let me cruise on down here. All right, we got there. Okay, here's the question that was a dovetail off of the roundover bits. Can you use profile bits like an OG bit as a profile bit and do many passes? The answer to that is kind of varied. You can use that type of form bits, like an OG bit. And in fact, I don't know if it still does, but VCarve used to come with an OG bit built into the tool database as kind of a placeholder down in the form tools. I don't know if it still does. Basic rule of thumb is that you can use any type of router bit in a CNC as long as it doesn't have a guide bearing on it. If the bit is a plunge type router bit that has a cutting edge all the way across the bottom, if it can be plunged into material, you can use it. You can use some other bits that aren't made to plunge in, but you have to ramp in those plunge moves. For instance, the bit I use to surface my spoil board doesn't have a cutter that goes all the way across the bottom. It's technically a mortising bit. So I have to ramp that in so as the bit's spinning, it's clearing away the material so that that material doesn't bottom out on the underside of that bit. There are certain strategies you have to use with some forming bits. And you won't be able to have it plunge down something like a beading bit, for example. You wouldn't be able to allow that to plunge down because it would just carve away the beads that it's trying to form. What you would have to do is plunge down outside of the profile, then slowly step in from the side to carve your beads around the edge. Now, again, as I said, I'm still playing with that, and I will have some videos coming up this year, in 2021. I keep forgetting, we're only at December 27th, that will demonstrate this. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes right now. So that's a work in progress. Jonathan W., you want to talk about somebody cool. You go hit Jonathan W.'s YouTube channel if you're into fabricating. This guy, I mean, coolest grandfather in the world. He got an old track-driven trenching machine, took the trencher, the big trenching bar off of the front of it. It had a blade on the back of it to bury your trench. He turned the whole ding-dong control system around and built his grandson a miniature bulldozer out of it for Christmas. Coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. The thing is awesome, man. Coolest grandpa ever, Jonathan. Let's see. Well, I see my friend Martin from I Build Sheds is there. How do you do, Martin? How do you do? Let's see. Ice Cream 62, off-topic question about rotary axis, okay? In your CNC, you're using the slave Y-axis driver to run the A-axis. Are you doing that because your drive box has only 3+1 slave drive? Yes, I have a 4-axis control box, but I'm using 2 of those to move my Y because the gantry is so big. So I have slaved the A-axis, which would normally be the rotary axis. I've slaved that to the Y to be able to move that. What I had to do was I had to create a new profile in my controller software that just uses the Z to control depth of cut, X to move the bit along the piece I have between centers on the rotary, and then uses the A to rotate the axis. I don't need to move back and forth in Y. So there is no Y-axis on that controller. But if I had a 5-axis controller set up, I wouldn't need to do that. I would be able to just use the A-axis. But my drive box is a 4-axis system that's no longer available. Jeff at Xylotex discontinued them. So I had to make do. I have to slave my A to my Y to move the gantry back and forth, get it in position, shut off the controller, shut off Mach 3, fire up the new profile in Mach 3, then turn on the controller so that it's all set. So I know that was more than you wanted to know. Let's see. Scott Malak says, I see on your modeling page you have icons that you have on the drawing page. Can you put them on both, or is that Aspire? Yeah, that's in Aspire. There are basically VCarve. Okay, Aspire has all of the icons in the same locations VCarve has. It's just Aspire has more of them because it has more options. You can't create a 3D model in VCarve. You can in Aspire. Let's see. Ice Cream 62. Let's see. So hypothetically, if you have a drive box with 4+1 slave drivers, you don't need to disconnect. Correct. If I had that would be a 5-axis controller. If I had a 5-axis controller, I wouldn't need to swap out the cable and do that. That video with the rotary axis settings that I put out was an answer to a direct question I got on how I'm controlling what is basically 5 different axes with a 4-axis controller. It was closed circuit for people who have that same drive box. So if you don't have that type of drive box, then you probably won't, that video probably won't apply to you, with the exception of the section where I figure out how to get my do my motor tuning on the rotary axis itself, because you have to wrap your head around the fact that you're working in degrees and not inches or distance. You're working in degrees. So yes, you can use a dedicated driver for the A-axis. See, Lewis Denton, our tool passes only controlling the Z-axis. The pass depth does control the Z-axis, yes. The X and Y are going to move around in a circle no matter how deep you have that bit set to cut. That's controlled by the Z-axis, yes. Martin, oh, you famous, all right. Yeah, well then how come I still have to take out the trash every Friday night? Shamim Evans, an inlay tutorial would be cool, especially for those guitar necks. Look for inlay videos coming up, hopefully sooner rather than later. I'm working on it. It's just there are so many things on the list, I can't do them all at once. Mike Mazalik says that an OG and a roundover are included in the latest versions. Yes. Okay. But again, those are basically placeholders. If you do get a roundover bit to use, make sure it's a plunge point roundover, and follow the manufacturer's instructions when it comes to pass depths, feeds, speeds, plunge rates, all that stuff. So, Gray Martin. Let's see. The wood shop comes in and says, John from Lawton Fort Sill finally got approval from the wife to upgrade my CNC to a Gatton. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Okay, Mr. Jane Johnson. When I 3D carve, there are little grooves around the file. How do I get rid of those? I would probably need to see a picture, but I think what you're talking about is after the bit is done cutting whatever it is the 3D model is, the bit is going beyond just slightly and you're seeing the step over of that bit. There are a couple of things that you can do for that. One is to use let me go back over here into Aspire just to see what that is called. Let's go ahead and screen share just to get into this. You can use, if you are using a finishing toolpath, and I'm assuming that you're carving to a selected vector, meaning a boundary vector around your model, you can use a boundary offset. And this is where previewing comes in. You know, preview it, calculate your toolpath, preview it, zoom in on it, make sure it's what you're getting. Excuse me. You can use a boundary offset a positive number here, like if, say, I wanted to go an eighth of an inch past that vector, I would enter a positive number. And when I'm carving my model out here, it would carve to that vector and go beyond it an eighth of an inch in both directions. If I didn't want it to do that, if I wanted it to come back in an eighth of an inch, I would just make that a negative number and then calculate the tool path. Now, you have to be careful. It really depends on what you're attempting to carve. If it is, let me come up with something here real quick. If you are carving, for instance, a dish, let's go ahead and just throw one out here. And I need to change my combine mode to subtract. When I look here at my 3D view, I'm getting rough edges right here. If this is the type of thing that you're talking about, all these jagged edges, what you'll need to do is apply a zero plane above that dish. And if we zoom in here real close and look, it has filled in those jagged edges. So a zero plane works in situations where you are carving a recess into the material. If you are carving something that's going to project out of a background, a zero plane will not help you. That's when you'll need to look at the drawing itself, look at the model itself. And when I say a vector boundary around it, I've got my model selected. We'll come up here, create a vector boundary around the selected component. And then I come over here and I want to carve. Okay, change my model thickness to 0.5 there. I forgot to do all that. I'm just trying to do this on the fly. Got all that taken care of. Okay. I've got my vector selected, so it's only going to carve right here up to this vector, and it's not going to go out here any. If I want to keep it from going all the way to this vector, that's when I would do a negative, let's say 20 thousandths of an inch. Calculate. And then when it starts carving, and we'll pause that because we don't have all day to sit around. It's not carving all the way up to that edge. Now that edge is getting rougher because I didn't carve all the way to it. So I'm not going to reset the preview. I'll let it pick up where it left off. We'll get rid of that boundary offset, calculate. And now let's go ahead and reset it and preview it. And we see now that the edge is much nicer. Now, it would be even nicer if I had decent modeling resolution set, but I didn't anticipate doing any 3D demonstrations, so I have my modeling resolution set pretty high. So, I hope that helps to answer the question. There are various factors. Your step over is another factor. The size of the bit is another factor. What you're actually carving is another factor. There are a whole bunch of variables. So let's see. Motorsport says Mach 3 issues, radius to end of arc differ from radius to start of line 670. I get the error. I'm using Aspire. Okay, I am not a Mach 3 expert. I know just enough Mach 3 to let my machine run. And other than that, I'm just dangerous. And I'm serious. I have broken more I've torn up more material than I've carved, especially when I was just starting out. My advice would be to go to Mach 3. I believe the website is called Mach Support, but do a Google search for Mach 3 support and you will find their support forum, and post the question over there. Join that forum. Those guys are the wizards. I mean, wizards when it comes to that software. The guy who developed it is still a member over there, and he's still working with people. I will guarantee you, you are not the first person to have that issue. And you will not be the last person to have that issue. Somebody has come up with that issue once before, and the answer is there. And they're more than willing to help out. It's a great group of people over there. That's, I believe it's called Mach Support. But if you do a good Google search for Mach 3 support, you will find your answer in that forum. Let's see. We have here, when it comes to step over value, is there some standard setting? Not really. And that's from Mark Kulig. Not really. There are certain guidelines and rules of thumb that people follow, but there's no real cut and dried answer. Generally speaking, I don't like to use more than, and we're talking strictly step over here. Typically speaking, I don't like to use more than 40% step over for anything like a pocket or a surfacing toolpath or something like that. And what that means is the bit will make one pass, then step over 40% of its diameter and come back to make the next pass. So it's not using more than half of its diameter. It has a chance to clear out those chips that it's just created and let the heat go with those chips. So some people will pad it up to 50%, and that's up to you. Your mileage may vary. I don't like to go any more than 40% on a clearance path. If you're talking about final pass, well, that can run anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending upon what it is. If you're talking about step over for 3D modeling, anywhere between 8 and 10% is now, but I've been known to go down to 7 or 6% step over. It just depends on A, the size of the model being carved, B, the size of the tool I'm using to carve it, and C, how much time I have to babysit the machine outside. So if I have a 3D shape like a simple dome that doesn't require a lot of detail, I don't have to use a bit with a 1/16 of an inch tip diameter. I can use a 1/2 inch diameter ball nose because it's just a smooth shape. There's not a lot of detail. But if I'm doing something like the Last Supper, there's a lot of detail there. I'll need to use a smaller bit to get that detail. I'll want to bring my step over way down so that I get a cleaner carve that's going to require a lot less touch-up. So, I hope that answers that question. There really is no cut and dried answer. But general guidelines are for clearance passes, no more than 40% of the tool's diameter. And for 3D, for the finishing pass, anywhere from 8 to 10%, I find is a good, happy starting place. So, let's see. Let's take a look. A lot of people asking about pistol grips and things of that nature. I don't get into files. I don't share files. I don't create mini files to sell at all. I think I've got one thing on my website, so I'm the wrong person to ask about that. Let's see. Zombino1, I love that name. Can you explain the strengths and difference of the different surfacing router bits? I'm looking at 3 different styles in the replacement knives category. Um, I can't really explain the strengths of those because I've never used them. Um, to be honest, I have a Freud straight mortising bit with 1.25 inch diameter, and that's done me fine. I probably need to up my game and get a larger one. Do know that the type of surfacing bits that have replaceable knives, they're very expensive to get into, but they will pay for themselves just due to the fact that you can replace the carbide inserts. And when it goes dull, you don't have to go get it sharpened or anything like that. You just rotate a knife. And that also comes in handy if you drop the son of a gun. You can just rotate one knife, tighten everything up, and drive on. But the main thing to look at is the diameter. As the diameter increases, the speed of your router / spindle needs to decrease. So be careful of that. Follow the manufacturer's guidelines. I like, and a lot of people love, I like the looks of the Amana surfacing bits, but they are pricey to get into. But if you do a lot of surfacing, like if I was surfacing a lot of real wide slabs, I'd be on one just quicker than you could say boo. I would have one here and be using the heck out of it. And I'd probably have some backup inserts just in case I had a lot to do. But your upfront cost is going to be a lot more. But if you do a lot of that type of work, a tool is not as an expense, it's an investment. So as far as strengths and weaknesses of one brand versus another or one model versus another, I'm the wrong person to talk to. I tend to go for my rule of thumb is 2 flutes or less on any bit except a surfacing bit. Just about all of them are either 3 or 4. I don't think I've seen a 2 flute surfacing bit. And but you're going to, as I said, you are going to be slowing that sucker way down because it's got such a big diameter anyway. So it doesn't really, it's not really a factor. The main reason for 2 flutes or less is you want to get that chip out of there. And a 4 flute bit spins so fast, especially if you're using a router and not a spindle. A 4 flute bit spins so fast, it doesn't have time to throw the chips out before the next flute comes around and cuts that chip up again. You basically grind up powder, build up heat, burn material, and dull up the bit. So 2 flute end mills, but 4 flute surfacing bits. So, and it's a kind of a mistake to say flutes because they're cutter edges, but you're only machining off, half a millimeter at a pass, 20 thousandths, 30 thousandths at a pass. So, Shameen Evans, have you tried any drag bit engraving on your machine, Mark? I have a diamond drag bit with a 90-degree tip, and I have yet to use it on a project. I really wanted to look into doing edge-lit LED signs. I just haven't made one yet. I just haven't got there. So, man, so the short answer is not yet. So, Todd HCNC, thanks for confirming that. Amana works good, just costs more up front. Yeah. And he likes the V-bits too. They stay sharp as well. Have you ever, now I got to ask you a question, Todd. Have you ever had a problem with those Amana V-bits with the replaceable inserts? Have you ever had a problem with them being out of balance or causing vibration? I've had one person get a hold of me who bought one of those. And why he talked to me, I don't know. I sent him straight to their tech support, and possibility of returning it. He said when he put it in there, he got a serious vibration and basically had to shut the whole thing down and go back to a regular 60-degree V-bit because it was out of balance. Have you ever had that issue? I've not tried any of those V-bits with the replaceable insert, but I'm real interested in it. So, yes, you have. Okay. Well, we may have to talk behind the scenes a little bit before I start investing money because they too are a little bit pricey. So, okay. Well, I hope I got everybody with the questions. I tried to go back through and see. I think I did get everybody. Let's see. Dean Howard says, Mark, I'm making a sign. Is there a reason why my modeling on V-carve and what is cut doesn't reflect the same results? Yeah, there are a lot of reasons, Dean. Shoot me a email with a picture of what, with a screenshot of what your preview is supposed to look like and what you got outside on the machine, and I'll see if we can walk through it. Just be warned, I'm behind on emails. I will get to it, but it may be a day or two. I'm that close to being caught up. So if you sent me a email 2 weeks ago, I'm almost there. I tried to start at the bottom and work my way up, but some answers are more complicated than others. So, okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Boy, there is absolutely no way I am ever going to be able to keep these to 30 minutes anymore. We just have too many folks joining us now. And believe me, that is not a complaint. I want to say thank you all. You folks rock. You continue to rock. Thank you to everybody who has used those donation buttons down in the description. I really appreciate you folks more than you will ever know. Let's see, my next video, looking at the calendar here. Holy cow. I need to get some work done. I got a video to put out next Sunday. I have no idea what next week's video is going to be, and it will be, fingers crossed, there should be a regular video posted, then a live Q&A about that video next Sunday. Now I got to figure out what that's going to be. You have any ideas, Martin? I have a couple. We'll see. Oh, M. Giles says, what do you do when you're trying to listen to a live chat and the wife keeps on talking? You turn around and you pay attention to her. Your full and undivided attention. Okay? That's the secret. That's the way to do it. I say this is a guy who is going to be celebrating his 33rd anniversary in March. Y'all have a good one. I don't know what next week's video is going to be, but it's going to be a good one. I can promise you that. Until that time, get outside, make some chips. I know it's cold, but come on, you can do it. Hey, Dean Howard, thank you very much. You are cool. You're very cool. I appreciate it. No, my wife is not the camera operator. Y'all take care. Have a good one. Get out and get something done.